Chapter 2, Life with Satan. Everybody's got a fucked up childhood. I'm convinced of that. Everybody has tons of heartbreaking stories about how bad they always had it growing up. Especially us rappers. I hate when people tell their fucked up, sad childhood stories to anybody who will listen, because most people tell them just to get attention. It's almost like they're trying to get props for it or something. Well, fuck that. I ain't trying to do nothing but be real. I'm telling my fucked up stories in this book only 'cause they happen to me, and they are a part of my history. They got me here today. I ain't trying to get any extra special props for what happened to me growing up, or trying to get any extra special attention. The only reason I'm mentioning this shit is 'cause it's what happened to me, and it's true. So here it goes. Life is like a long-ass road. Not all the places my road has taken me have been the shit. There have been many roadblocks and ambushes along the way so far. When I was probably 6 years old, my mom finally remarried. I never understood why, but our new stepfather would be a 50-year-old rich but ugly as hell bastard by the name of Lester Wohl. That's right, he was actually a member of the dreaded Wohl family. He tricked his way into our family. He played like he had nothing to do with the rest of those evil wolves. He totally, completely fronted his way into our lives. I remember it today, and I feel the anger raging through my body thinking about how fucking fake and phony he was as he tricked my mom and the rest of us into thinking he was nothing like the rest of his fucked up evil family. But he was worse than the rest of his family. He was the grandfather of the family. He was the fucking granddaddy Wohlmaster himself. He was none other than the father of the horrid bitch Mary Wohl. On top of that, he was the grandfather of those two horny little rugrats, Chris and Ricky Wohl. Lester met my mom during the second summer that Mary Wohl was taking care of us. I must admit, at first, he seemed like the only Wohl family who had a heart, and it was as if God gave all the love and compassion to Lester Wohl and forgot to give any to the rest of that devilish Wohl clique. He'd come around the backyard and ask his scary-ass daughter Mary shit like, "What do you got those kids in this muddy-ass backyard for? What's wrong with you, Mary?" Then he'd turn to us and be like, "Come on, you guys, get in my car." And he'd take us out to a fair or something. He was steady playing the role of super fresh. Once a week, he'd pick us up and take us somewhere fresh like Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. I remember he worked for Chrysler, and he seemed well paid. He was well paid. He had a big, rich-ass Chrysler car with power windows, so he must have been rich. My mom was at a really bad point in her life, and Lester played the savior by hooking us up with groceries and all kinds of shit, trying to make us think he was the superhero we needed. He had conned his way into our lives by acting like he knew how fucked up the rest of the Wohls were. Anybody out there who's ever had a new stepdad trying to work his way into the family knows exactly what I'm talking about. Mr. fucking nice guy until he gets his way in. My mom was 30 and he was 50. My mom's main interest in him was his money because she needed it to help raise us kids. My mom's main interest was taking care of us kids, and she would do whatever she had to do that. With it, she could provide a decent life for her kids. She was willing to sacrifice her own happiness for us, but it would end up being the worst mistake of her life. Their marriage only lasted 2 wicked years, but it burned a lifetime of pain into my whole family. You see, little did we know it at the time, but Lester Wohl was the devil himself. The first thing he did was move us all into a new, bigger house in Berkeley. Cool enough. I was young back then, so my memory is weak, but from what I'm told now and from what I can recall myself, this is what started happening once we got into that house. Lester Wohl started growing his horns. First, he started sexually abusing my sister Teresa. I'm told it was bad. Thank God I don't have any specific details, but from what I know, he repeatedly molested her time and time again. This was the cause of my sister's many problems to come, all because of Lester Wohl. I don't know exactly what he did with my brother because to this very day we never talked about it. Not once. I don't think I could ever handle knowing exactly all the things Lester did to them. I don't care about myself and my problems with Lester because I feel like I can handle bad things happening to me. But when something bad happens to Robert or my sister Teresa, it feels like it hurts me 3 times as bad. All I remember Lester the molester doing is grabbing me and grabbing my dick piece. He'd grab it and look at me with his fucked up half smile on his face and ask me shit like, "Do you know what this is?" After sick shit like that, Lester just got worse, and my mom didn't have a clue as to what was happening. She was always away at work, and we were too confused and young to tell her what was really going on. We were, after all, children, very young children, and we were filled with shock and horror. One time I had my friend Willie spending the night. His name was Willie Spassage. What a fresh-ass last name that is. We were laying up late one night watching the Three Stooges. And I guess my mom was either sleeping or not home for whatever reason. That sick bastard Lester came walking out of the bedroom, butt naked with his robe wide open. He walked right in front of the TV so we all could see him. Then he came back from the kitchen and did it again. In fact, he walked naked like that back and forth a few times. I was speechless. I remember being so fucking embarrassed. I didn't know what to say to Willie. I never even looked at him. I just pretended I was suddenly asleep. We both just laid there on the floor, fake sleeping for the rest of the night. That's one of the worst memories I have. The worst thing I remember Lester doing in that house was kicking our dog Duke. He would just run up and fucking kick Duke for nothing at all and send him flying across the room. Sometimes as soon as my mom left for work, Duke would lie there trying to catch his wind after that. We always thought Duke was going to die every time that faggot Lester kicked him. After Duke got kicked, he would have trouble walking for days. Seeing that was far worse than Lester grabbing my dick. I'll tell you that right now. Seeing Lester kick our dog Duke was far worse than anything Lester ever did to me. I'd rather that sick fucker grab my dick and rip it off than kick our dog like that. To me, seeing my dog get kicked was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. We loved our dog Duke more than anything in this world, and we tried to stay outside with our dog as much as we could to escape the cruelty of the demon that was now our stepdad. We couldn't do anything about Lester's abuse because we really didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was just beyond our understanding, or at least mine. They say that people who molest their kids were molested themselves. I can't ever fathom that, molesting a kid. To this day, I'm a fucking 43-year-old man, and I don't have any idea how the fuck he found enjoyment in any of that. My sister Teresa got it from him really bad for years, and I think my brother Rob may have gotten it worse than me. But I'll go to my grave before I want to know what happened to them in detail. As close as we are, we just don't talk about it. And we probably never will. We hopefully never will. I dread the day if we ever do. I was so young, that famous molester technique of him saying, "You better not tell your mom," actually worked on me. I never told my mom. My sister, being the oldest, was, thank God, the first one to break the stale silence, and she told my mom. By the time second grade started, I knew the entire Wool family was fucked in the skulls. From time to time, Chris and Ricky Wool would come around our house to see their grandpa, my stepdad. By now, they'd outgrown waggling their dicks at us, and they had moved on to bigger weirdo shit. One day, Chris Wool and I were up in my room after having a snowball fight at the park. We were changing out of our wet clothes when it happened. "Let's have sex," Chris said. "What the fuck are you talking about?" I asked without the word fuck. At the time, I didn't even really know what sex was. I mean, I sort of had an idea, but I always figured that sex involved a chick. I mean, I still figure that. "Listen, Joe, just take your clothes off and lay down on your stomach," Chris explained. I always knew that there was something wrong with him, but now I knew just how wrong he was. He was already trying to have gay sex with my butt at 9 years old. I have no problem with gay people, but having gay sex at 9 years old? Come on, man, please. Buttholes just aren't ready for that shit yet. Even at 7 years old myself, I already knew my butthole would never be ready for that shit ever. No, I said. No, hell no.
We don't gotta kiss or nothing like that, he pleaded. Me and Ricky do this all the time. Just lay down on the bed and I'll do the rest.
That was it. I freaked out. I got dressed and ran out of the room. I found my brother downstairs and I told him what Chris Wool had just said. Without a word, Rob walked right up to Chris Wool. You have got to get out of here right now. Rob, being a lot taller, could have easily kicked his ass. And that was it. Chris and his younger brother, Ricky, left. Thankfully, as fate would have it, that was the last time we ever saw Chris or Ricky Wool again. I mean, we'd see them time to time, but we never spoke to them again. I wonder where they are now. They're probably all grown up and married right now, terrorizing some innocent family the same way their grandfather Lester the Molester terrorized ours. Now that I'm a grown-ass, old-ass man, things are much different. If I ever run into Lester Wool's tired frame again, I'll kill it. Don't get me wrong, I'll do my best to get away with it too. I ain't that stupid. A life sentence would suck right about now. But I will flat out kill his ancient old ass. Believe me, I'll simply sneak up to him, probably in his wheelchair, and take my 2 fingers and pinch his windpipe shut and stare him in the eyes as he slowly dies. I yelled that ever since I was old enough to know what murder was. My brother Rob screams the exact same thing. We ain't looking for Lester Wool. We ain't trying to track him down or anything, but if fate has it someday that we happen to cross paths with Lester Wool again, he's a dead-ass motherfucker. I'll simply follow him home and end his evil life. I'm hoping I'd see him somewhere walking up a staircase or something. Imagine how easily it would be. He's got to be older than Moses by now, so I'll just give him a little sweater tuggy tug and watch him roll down the steps backwards, crumbling and dying, until finally cracking his head open on the floor. It would look so accidental that nobody would ever suspect a thing. I know Lester Wool is headed to hell when he dies anyway. I just wouldn't mind if that process was sped up some. I know he's been on Satan's VIP guest list for years. He's probably got a luxury suite complete with acid bath water, a king-size bed of nails waiting on his ass, not to mention 24-hour room service, only hell's favorite dish to enjoy, fresh, hot, severed human ass with a fork stuck in it. Back to my story and how Lester's reign of terror finally ended in our household, at least. One late afternoon, I was at my friend Willie's house, the same Willie who watched the Naked Nut Three Stooges special with me, and Rob came bursting into the bedroom to get me. Joe's got to come home right now, Rob explained to his mom. Willie and I dropped our Legos. What? Why? What's going on? I asked. Then Rob said the freshest words I've ever heard. Mom and Lester are getting a divorce. Rob and I ran all the 4 blocks home, happy as fuck. We jumped up and down the whole way. We could hear crashes and smashing coming from our house all the way down the block. When we burst into our front door, my mom was bawling her eyes out and throwing dishes at Lester, who was standing there looking like Uncle Fester. As all hell came crashing down around him, with shit smashing all on the walls behind him, he just slowly made his way into the bedroom to pack. My mom didn't stop there, though. Even with him locked in the bedroom, she proceeded to break everything he ever bought for the house. The Richie-style lamps, the pictures, all that fancy faggot Chrysler money shit he added into our lives. Everything. It was crazy as hell. I remember that night like I remember right now. My brother and I were cheering her on. This is the craziest part. We were actually jumping up and down on the couch while all this was happening. My mom could see how happy we were, and it just made her cry more. She knew how much we hated that asshole. She felt so bad sad about bringing him into our lives. She wanted him dead. We were so happy. We started grabbing dishes ourselves and throwing them with my mom. Even in her state of panic, she wasn't having that shit though. After 10 minutes or so, Lester the molester came out with his suitcase and limped out the door. He jumped into his big-ass, hoe-ass Chrysler and drove the fuck off. Who knows where he went? Who cares? For all I know, he drove his big-ass power window Richie car right the fuck back to hell where he came from. Ever since then, I've always hated Chryslers, and I still do. Fuck Chryslers. Here's how it all went down. I guess earlier that day, when my mom came home from work, she found a note written by my sister Teresa. The note told it all. Everything. My mom was finally hearing the truth about her evil husband for the very first time. The note told in detail of all the molesting, the physical abuse, the beatings on our dogs and us, and the sickness, all that had been going on for the last 2 years. The note also informed my mom that because of all of this, my sister had run away. According to the note, she was never coming back. I don't have any idea what went through my mom's mind during those 2 hours she was home before Lester got home from work, but I'm guessing it was the longest 2 hours of her life. My brother came home before Lester did. He said my mom looked like she was in shock, like the devil was standing there and had her in a chokehold. He said she was just blank-faced and breathless. I guess that the second Lester walked into the house that evening, the war began. That's when my brother came and got me. Lester knew he had been caught. He was busted. The cat was finally out of the bag. My mom finally knew that he was nothing but a faggot-ass, abusive dick sucker in need of a bullet in his forehead. When Lester Wool walked out that day, we would never see him again, just like the other Wools, Chris and Ricky and Mary. That was it. The real nightmare was finally over, but the dream nightmares would of course continue for some time. My mom put us all into family counseling to help us with the stress of the abuse that we endured, and it helped my brother and I to some degree, I guess. My sister, however, was affected the worst of all, and her memories are probably to blame for her mental problems as she got older. All my mom did during Teresa's teenage years was chase after her. My mom would find her somewhere and bring her back home. Weeks later, she would just run away again, over and over. Teresa eventually got heavy into all kinds of problems and all kinds of crazy shit. During the time after the divorce, my mom constantly asked my brother and I questions about what that asshole Lester had done to us. She was both angry with us and sad that we never told her about any of it. She knew that Lester's terror hadn't affected Rob and I as bad as it fucked up our sister. Teresa straight up went insane from it all. That took up most of my mom's time. She spent day after day, week after week, year after year dealing with my fucking sister's insanity. All this time, Rob and I grew closer and closer. We both sat and watched my mom cry and grow crazy from what my sister was putting her through. There were so many stories of my sister's struggle, but all of them are bad, and none of them are really worth mentioning here. With the old pig gone, once again we had to move because his income went with him, and we were back to being dirt-ass poor. My mom quickly found a cheap top-floor, dirty-ass, rusty roof duplex apartment in Berkeley. She had no other choice but to take it. The only problem was the crabby landlady didn't allow pets. My mom talked it over with us and ran an ad in the paper to give Duke away, but I still couldn't comprehend what was about to happen. Then one day, she sent me and my brother to the store for some shit, and when we came back, our dog Duke was being loaded into a van by a lady with a bunch of kids. Duke seen us coming and started to bark and cry as they put him inside. Rob and I ran as fast as we could, dropping our shit and everything. As the van drove away, Duke barked at us from the back window of the van, and then the van turned the corner and Duke was out of our lives forever, our best friend. It was the worst day of my life, and I was mad at my mom for a long time after that. Even to this day, I haven't fully forgiven her for that one. My brother Rob was hurt even worse than I was. I didn't write anything in this book about how fresh of a dog Duke was because I didn't think y'all would be interested. but he was by far the freshest dog I'd ever known, and we loved him so much as one can possibly love another. Later, the neighbors who lived underneath us got a little faggot-ass poodle dog, and since they were friends with the landlady, she made an explanation to the rules and let them keep the dog, even though we had to give Duke away. I ain't gonna lie to you. Shortly after that, when our landlady had a heart attack and was in the hospital for a couple weeks, I felt a secret satisfaction. Yes, I did. It was just her bad karma, I guess. Our new home was like the fucking front lines in the war between my sister and my mom. As for Rob and I, as we got older, all we ever did was explore any forest we could find. My brother was getting more and more into role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, Car Wars, Boot Hill, Gamma World, Toon, and all them fantasy dice games. As for me, I was loving ninja movies and just getting into pro wrestling. I guess anything outside of reality was fine with us, because for those years, reality more than just sucked at our house. Teresa continued her endless spree of trouble over the next 5 years. She was constantly in and out of children's homes, then jails, and then more jails. She was getting caught up with all types of druggy lowlifes who she'd just suddenly show up with and drag into the house. I hate to keep talking about this, but just like this part of the book, the war between my mom and sister went on and on and on. These were absolutely the worst years of my mother's life. I can see it like this. Lester Wool was like the atomic bomb. After the explosion was over, life was like living under the black dust cloud, poisoned by all the radiation. I remember my mom and sister's violent fights at the house. Punching, hair pulling, biting, even some good old dish throwing. I absolutely hated every second of it. It was fucking horrible. I swear to God I fucking hated that shit. The older Rob and I got, the easier it was to deal with. Fantasy kept us happy and busy. Rob and I were out on our own. From the time I was 9 years old on, I was mentally gone. I stayed in a fantasy land and I'm still there, of course. I had a roof over my head and there was some food around sometimes, but we were always gone. Nothing mattered to us ever but adventure and being out of the house. My mom just got so wrapped up in my sister's problems and working 2 or 3 jobs at a time, she didn't even have the time to deal with us much anyway. That's the truth. She loved all 3 of her kids more than life itself, but she could only do what she could only do. Besides, Rob and I were okay without her all the time. We were straight up good kids. Not nerdy, smart kids with good grades. I just mean, we weren't no fucking Mark Walensky's, ghost riding ninjas bikes and shit. I wonder just what makes an asshole an asshole. Some people are just born to be assholes, I guess. Rob and I were always good guys. Rob way more than I was, though. Give us a comic book or a D&D game and we were fucking straight. As God is my witness, I didn't say a cuss word once until I was 17 years old. My brother Rob didn't cuss until he was in the army. I really don't know why. We were just the kings of words like frick instead of fuck. We would say shit like mofo instead of motherfucker. Here, I'll give you some of the anti-cussing vocab that we had mastered back in the day. Dick was wang. Fuck was frick. Bitch was witch. Faggot was homo. Shit was she. Cum was skeet and still is. Asshole was whack. I may have dropped out of school at 16, but I didn't cuss till I was 17. By then I had so much cussing built into me that I would start a career cussing by the time I was 19. You'll hear about all that boring dumb shit later. Besides my family having to all move into a Barbie doll toy upper flat apartment after my mom got divorced, we were also dirt poor again. A family of 3, 4 when my sister was around, living off a janitor's income. We all got our clothes from the rummage sales that were held at the church my mom worked at. They would have these big-ass rummage sales once a year. Because my mom worked there and they knew we were poor as hell, they let us have first pick every year. Great. We were privileged scrubs. In elementary school, you know how there's always that one kid who's notoriously a scrub? The kid everybody swears they saw eating his own boogers and some shit? Well, check this out. That was me all day and then some. I never ate my boogers or nothing, but I did worse. When I was in 3rd grade, I had to shit so bad I couldn't hold it. And let's just say my butthole geyser erupted. I clenched my ass cheek shut as hard as I could, and I asked to be excused. I stood up and walked down the hall to the bathroom. And just when it seemed under control, it wasn't. I took my poopy butt drawers off and wiped my butt as clean and as fast as I could. But then some other 5th graders came walking in and almost caught me in the act. I left the bathroom with the quickness. The only problem was I accidentally left my shitty drawers in there on the floor. Pretty soon everybody in the school knew it. How did they know? I'll tell you how they knew. Because my mom had written my full name on the waistband of my underwear. You see, a few months earlier, my brother and I went to summer camp hosted by the church my mom worked for, and they had everybody write their names on their underwear for camp laundry. Just my Bruce brother luck. Not only did all the other kids know I had dumped in my pants, but they weren't gonna let me forget it. Those ruthless fuckers put my shitty drawers on a stick and chased me around the playground with it. Finally, the teacher stopped them and threw my drawers in a big plastic bag. They called me into the office and told me that if my mom wanted my shitty underwear back, she could come and pick them up before 5:30 that day, or else in the morning. Aw, thanks. And Rob and I were legendary scrubs in Berkeley. We had little to no friends except each other. Bad Luck was our 6-man tag team partner in grade school. Remember how in elementary school all the students would pay $1 every day for hot lunch? If you didn't have $1 that day, it was okay. They would still feed you, but that meant you owed them $2 the next day. Well, at our school, they would actually announce the names of the kids who owed money for hot lunches over the PA system every fucking morning. Every fucking morning, they would give the day's announcements, and too many times it sounded something like this.
And lastly, blah 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 owes money for hot lunch. Jim Astley, Timmy Beckford owe money for 2 lunches. These students owe over 3 lunches. Tim Heckle owes for 4 lunches, and Robert Bruce and Joseph Bruce need to stop by the front office this lunch period.
It was like the Billboard charts to me. The higher up the list, the more fucked off you were. We were always down in the in trouble last part because we owed so much fucking lunch money at the time. The whole class would turn around and look at me. I fucking hated that. Think of how fucked up that is that the school would actually do that. Announce the kids' names who owed money. How could that be helpful? What do they think they're gonna do? Embarrass the kids into paying the money? If you don't got the fucking money, you don't got the fucking money. There's no point to announce your name over the whole fucking school to the PA. It's straight bullshit. It's straight crooked evil shit they did, if you think about it now. And I know they don't do shit like that no more, they just can't. It'd be too fucked up. By the end of the week, the only students who would still owe would be Robert Bruce and Joe Bruce. Why the fuck did they feel the need to announce your fucking debts to the whole motherfucking school? Think about how cruel that is. By middle school, we were the brunt of everybody's jokes. The kids would always tease the girls. If you step on a cracked tile, you gotta kiss one of the Bruce brothers. So all the girls would walk down the school halls, jumping and skipping along, steady trying not to step on the tiles with cracks. Remember how I said being poor didn't matter until you got a little older? Well, in middle school, it was starting to matter. We had the same fucked up pair of shoes all school year, and then we'd come back from summer vacation still wearing them the next year. The kids weren't cool about any of this shit either. Even the school itself was heartless. Now as an adult, when I think about how cruel my middle school was, it makes me want to go up there with a black jacket. I said jacket, not trench coat. We were so fucking poor, them years, we'd get food from the hunger barrel. No lie, the church would set up hunger barrels in my school and tell the students to bring in canned foods to feed the poor. A week later, those very church people would bring the box of canned foods right to our house. Let me tell you something about canned fucking foods. People give. They only give whatever they ain't gonna eat themselves, which really ain't giving shit. That's what sucked about fucking Hunger Barrels. Anytime somebody donates canned foods, they always dig way in the back of the shelves and give the shit like canned yams or creamed rice. All that shit nobody's gonna fucking eat. All that shit in them boxes we did at the house wasn't worth shit. Every once in a great while there'd be a fresh can of ravioli or some SpaghettiOs, but that was once in every blue fucking moon. The second the box would come every Thursday, my brother and I would attack it looking for something good like ravioli or SpaghettiOs. Every box we'd get would just have 1 or 2 cans of attackable food. The rest would be peas and corn and shit. Speaking of canned foods, ICP has done many canned food drives over the years, and we always made sure to tell ninjas, bring only the good shit, only the raviolis and SpaghettiOs and beefaronis. No bullshit foods allowed. No yams, no peas or any shit like that. Only the good shit like meatball meteors and creamy loopy lumps with cheese. All that good shit. My mom had promised to never get married again, but she did start dating. One night she was going out with this guy who drove a big custom van. Before they left to go out one night, my mom sent him to the party store to get us some pop. He asked if I wanted to go. I went with him, which turned out to be a major mistake. Right when we pulled out of the driveway, he turned up the radio piercingly loud. I'm talking crazy fucking treble loud. I thought his windows were gonna shatter. I went into the store and bought my 2-liter of Faygo because it was the cheapest. On the way back, the guy could see I didn't like the music that fucking loud. So when I got out of the van, he said, "Hey kid, sorry about the tunes. Do me a favor and don't tell your mom about it, okay?" My mom got her keys and asked me how the trip to the store was. I had to be honest. "Did he have to play the music that loud, Mom?" I complained. I didn't think anything of it, neither did she. It was no fucking big deal at all until later that night. It was really hot in my bedroom, but I finally fell asleep. I must have been tossing and turning all fucking night because my pajamas were completely off me. I guess I was sleeping there butt naked with my pants lying around my feet. Suddenly, slap! A big painful slap woke me up out of a dead sleep. I had no idea what the fuck was happening. I opened my eyes and there was my mom's date standing over me, ready to bitch slap me again, hissing at me. You could smell the whiskey on this motherfucker's breath. I told you to shut the fuck up and not tell your mom. Being single with 3 kids and as overweight as my mom was, it was going to be hard for her to find Mr. Right. And this dude was Mr. Wrong and a can of Spam. He straight up slapped the shit out of me naked. All I remember was trying to pull my pants up, but he kept hitting me. That fucking sucked. Now, ever since that very night, I never sleep naked. To this day, I refuse to. It's not because I'm a fat ass. It's more because you never know what could happen in the middle of the night. And if someone's breaking into your house or something like that happens, you don't want to be fighting the ninja butt naked. It's easier to have your pants on.